understand you're not really commenting on politics, but hasn't Fukushima essentially done the job for you and stopped it?
You mean
new plants?
Well, I think what's happened is that nuclear power is just it's not economical. It's even gas-fired plants that they're building are more efficient and they make more money basically. So these older plants, they're starting to shut them down. I think the industry is dying. They keep trying to come up with new designs to convince everybody that it's
safe. Safe. Are you there, Professor? I think we just lost him.
I'm sorry. That was my fault. Can you hear me now?
You are there. Okay. Let me use the opportunity to throw a question at you that has come in on the computer as well. Charles says, how many nuclear weapons are there in outer space?
Well, if there are any, nobody admits to it. But that's a problem. We're moving towards an arms race in space. And, but I think, as far as I know, nobody's got stations out there with, weapons mounted on them.
Well, there sure would be a good reason to have them up there.
They used to talk about, we actually planned to put them on the moon at one point. That was a long time ago, but.
Well, the moon, that would be, too much warning. But, my goodness, if they're sitting up there on satellites, now you're talking about, I don't know that there'd be any warning at all, would there?
Well, that's a good question. What I could tell you about they call it depressed trajectories. If they fire from a submarine-launched ballistic missile off the coast, you can use a trajectory that's like not typical, like it goes up and way up and comes down. Then you can shorten the flight time and make it really hard to detect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. We have the system. They call it, the article I wrote that was published in the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists today was about the dangers of launch on warning.
Mm-hmm.
And once the U.S. and Russia constructed these early warning systems on each side, and they basically kind of hooked them up to their national command authority, the president, and then the ICBMs that we have in our silos, the buried underground. They got crews sitting there 24/7 waiting for a launch order.
We have to launch on warning, don't we?
Well, I don't think so.
But in reality.
Well, what if it's a false warning? What if it's a false warning of attack?
Oh, well, that would be an accident.
Yeah, that would be, then our retaliatory strike would actually be a preemptive nuclear strike.
My point is that with the effect of these weapons, you have to launch on warning. Once you have made up your mind, the other side has launched, it's use them or lose them, right?
Yeah, but that all gets back to the military mindset of essentially thinking about these almost like we did with conventional weapons and ignoring the scientific consequences of their use, to the environment. Because if somebody launches a large nuclear strike, we're cooked. It does, and so if we retaliate, we'll make it worse. But that's the reason why we're advocating that first of all we stand these weapons down so that you can't launch them before, or at the very least you would not launch a strike before a nuclear detonation confirms that the strike has occurred.
Professor, it would be too late. Let me for a moment make you the president, mm-hmm. which I know you don't want to be. But you now have your military coming to you, President Starr, and saying they've launched. The other side has launched. Your orders, Mr. President.
Well, I would say that if I had not been president long enough to arrange for the weapons to be stood down, I would say we will not launch unless there's confirmation of the attack, because there's been more than one occasion where there have been false warnings of attack. They rolled the lids back off the silos. That happened in 1985, even when they had a faulty computer chip at NORAD. And it signaled that a massive Soviet strike was underway when, in fact, it was just a 50-cent computer chip that had gone bad.
Mm-hmm.
But see, they stopped, I wrote about this some years ago, but they stopped publicizing this information. But we do know that in 1995, for example, the Russians sent a letter to say, it was Norway, and then they sent a letter to Russia and said, we're gonna have a launch of a missile. It's a weather satellite. They didn't get it.
Oh,
and so when this missile was launched, it appeared to the Russians that it was from a U.S. submarine-launched ballistic missile.
Right.
And they went to full alert. They had their nuclear briefcases open, and they were ready to launch a retaliatory strike because there's some scenarios that involve a single weapon using EMP, say, over Moscow that would disable their communication systems. So it was plausible to them that even though it was one missile, it could be a prelude to a nuclear attack. But again, we're not told about all the false alerts and things that they have. We're just reassured that, don't worry, we're in control and everything's fine.
All right, Professor, I am curious. This sort of clampdown in the media, ever since the Cold War has ended, I mean, there was plenty during the Cold War, but since, with it now being even more dangerous, and there's so little education of the kind that we're doing tonight actually out there, what's up with that?